There are certain injuries that are usually worth $250,000 or more, but they're not the injuries that you might think. I'll tell you what these injuries are, but first I need to quickly explain something. We're talking about personal injury cases where someone else is at fault. And I'm talking about the full value of your pain and suffering. That's the value of your pain and suffering without taking your fault, if any, into account. For example, let's take the car accident of the pro golfer Tiger Woods. Tiger lost control of his vehicle and it rolled over. He had serious fractures that affected the upper portion of his lower leg bone and the lower portion of his lower leg bone as well. A doctor drilled a rod into his tibia, his lower leg bone. The doctor also put screws and pins in his foot and his ankle. With those injuries, the full value of Tiger's pain and suffering claim would be worth over $250,000. However, since there was no one else to blame for the crash, Tiger is not entitled to money for his pain and suffering. Not that he needs any money. So, even though the full value of your pain and suffering claim may be worth over $250,000, if you're the only one at fault, no one owes you money for your pain and suffering claim. But that's not the only reason why you may not get any money. There can be many other reasons, such as the person or company who caused your accident might not have insurance or money to pay you. Many accidents are caused by uninsured or underinsured drivers. Or maybe your accident happened in a state where you can't get compensation if you're just 1% or more at fault. Those are just a few of the many potential hurdles in an accident case. When we look at which personal injuries are frequently worth $250,000 or more, we're focusing on your pain and suffering value. I'm not going to spend much time speaking about your lost wages or your medical bills, even though they can each be a big part of your personal injury settlement or verdict. So where am I getting this $250,000 pain and suffering value from? We look at past recent settlements and jury verdicts. We use them because they're the best indicator of the value of your pain and suffering claim. To explain the first injury that is often worth $250,000 or more, let's look at a car accident case where Brooke was rear-ended by another vehicle at 62 miles per hour. Brooke had neck pain and complained of dizziness and other symptoms. Paramedics took her to the emergency room. Her neck MRI showed that she had 3 herniated discs that were pushing on the area that surrounds the spinal cord. The driver who hit Brooke only had $100,000 in bodily injury liability insurance. However, Brooke had $500,000 in underinsured motorist coverage. That insurance pays you for your pain and suffering and other damages if someone who is uninsured or underinsured hits you. According to Brooke's lawyer, Geico only offered $500 to settle her underinsured motorist claim. Brooke had 2 trigger point injections. Her neurologist noted that she had concussive symptoms including decreased short-term memory and decreased thought processing. About 1.5 years after her car accident, Brooke was still having neck pain. She went to a neurosurgeon. At trial, her neurosurgeon said that she'd need a 2-level disc replacement or 2-level neck fusion surgery due to the accident. The jury awarded her over $1 million for her pain and suffering up to the time of trial. A disc replacement or fusion surgery in your neck is the first injury that is usually worth $250,000 or more in pain and suffering. However, if you haven't yet had the neck surgery, don't expect the insurance company to offer you $250,000 for your pain and suffering. They likely won't value the pain and suffering of your future neck surgery at $250,000. I'm talking about before a lawsuit. This is true unless you have other serious injuries. And often, even during a lawsuit, they won't offer $250,000 in pain and suffering for a neck surgery that you have not yet had. Let's talk about another injury whose full pain and suffering value is often $250,000 or more. We'll use Ryan's case where he was driving his car heading straight down the street. Another driver was heading in the opposite direction and made a left-hand turn right into the front and driver's side of Ryan's car. As a result of the impact, Ryan broke his leg right beneath his kneecap. This is called the tibial plateau. Shortly after the crash, Ryan hired me as his lawyer. A doctor drilled a plate and screws into his leg. For a short time, Ryan had to use a wheelchair to get around. He then needed crutches to walk for a bit. Eventually, his leg and knee were doing great. The surgeon could not say that Ryan would need a future knee replacement. I got the other driver's insurance company to pay the $100,000 policy limits. In addition, after I sued, I got Ryan's underinsured motorist insured to pay $200,000. The combined settlement was over $300,000. The settlement was for $300,000 because Ryan had a tibial plateau fracture, which usually has a full pain and suffering value of $250,000 or more. To explain another injury that is often worth $250,000 or more for pain and suffering, let's look at Sam's case. Sam was riding his bike in a crosswalk in South Florida. While doing so, a driver was trying to make a right-hand turn and hit Sam. As a result of the impact, Sam had terrible pain in his ankle. Paramedics came to the scene and rushed him to the hospital. Then the doctor gave Sam some bad news. The 3 bones in his ankle were broken. This is called a trimalleolar fracture. Sam quickly hired me as his lawyer. A doctor drilled a plate and screws into his ankle. I found out that Geico insured the driver of the car. Sam was still having pain and swelling in his ankle. He then had a second surgery to remove the hardware from his ankle. I offered to settle Sam's personal injury case with Geico. And do you think that Geico made a fair offer? Nope. They played hardball like all insurance companies do. They only offered $100,000 to settle. But I know that when you break 2 or 3 bones in your ankle and have surgery, the full value of pain and suffering is often $250,000 or more. So we held out and aggressively pursued Sam's personal injury case. We ultimately settled for $350,000, which put Sam's pain and suffering at over $250,000. After lawyers' fees, costs, and paying medical bills, Sam got over $227,000 in his pocket. He was thrilled. Some other injuries that often have a full value of pain and suffering of $250,000 or more are the following: a hip or femur fracture with surgery, or a shoulder replacement. $250,000 is a lot of money, but did you know that there are certain injuries that are often worth $1 million and they're not the injuries that you might think? To find out what they are, watch the video on the screen or click on the link in the description below. And if you've been seriously injured in an accident in Florida or on a cruise and someone else is at fault, click on the link in the description below to see if I could be the lawyer for you.